1974. On TV, it was the time of the $6 Million Man and Happy Days. The cinema, Chinatown. The speed limit changed from 70 to 55. Evel Knievel jumped the Snake River Gorge. How about them bell-bottoms and those leisure suits? Ali and Foreman, and the first ever United States president to resign from office. 50 years ago, 5 decades. What's the old saying? That's a lot of water under the bridge. My grandfather was a mechanical guy, at first working for high-speed batteries in Milwaukee in the 1930s. Then they were bought out by Pure Oil, and then Union 76 bought them out. Then his son, my dad, was also mechanical, working as a maintenance man at the department store Hudson's. My parents divorced in the early 1970s, and my mom moved back to New Jersey, where she was from, but they were good with visitation. Then came the summer of 1974. Here for the summer, I went to my dad's, and one of the first things he did was pull out a huge hat box that he got from where he worked at Hudson's. Inside were 6 MPC plastic NASCAR models. The Petty Plymouth, the Pearson Pontiac. Oh, if that was heaven for a 6.5-year-old, I was there. So my grandpa, my dad, my brother Brian, and a stepbrother Mark, and myself went to the races in our camper that August. The 25th of that month, my life changed forever when I saw that fire red and petty blue Dodge go screaming by. In 2017, I realized, hey, 50 years is coming up on that race. That'd make a cool book to look back on who was involved in that event. So I got to work, doing interviews, talking to people, etc. But then realized, despite fans saying, we love the old days, most don't buy books. And of course, we lost some along the way, because 50 years is a long time. Winner David Pearson, Cale Yarborough, James Hilton, just recently Frank Warren, Joe Frisson, Bill Champion, Cuckoo Marlin, Richie Panch, Glenn Wood, Morris Petty, Bob Whitlow, Tony Bettenhausen, Katie Ballard, Buddy Baker, Bud Moore, Elmo Langley, Benny Parsons, Jabe Thomas, Dick Brooks, Cecil Gordon, as well as officials Les Richter, Bill France Sr. and Jr., MRN's Marnie Hall, just recently Ken Squire, and Bob Latford, to name a few. But on to the living, and we spoke to Bobby Allison, and he called the Matador an amazing piece, and he was impressed with it. He said that we ran well in every race we ran it in, and you can see we led in every race, even though I didn't have the heart to tell him he didn't lead at MIS. And then he was talking about the race where he won at Ontario, and it was a roller tappet system. And he said it had went through inspection the week before, and it was well hidden. But then he said Traco turned them in. He said that Roger Penske tried to keep things separate, the Indy cars and the stock cars, and that he was a spotter, and that he was an amazing spotter. And he finally did talk him into running Indy cars the following year. The red, white, and blue number 12 Matador finished 5th, 2 laps down, after Allison spun out early in the race due to brake problems. 50 years is a long time, and unfortunately, some folks that were there couldn't remember some of the particulars of the race, like the Hat Man, Bill Broderick, who worked for Union 76, and Dale Inman, Richard Petty's famous cousin and crew chief at the time, who said that he couldn't remember that race, but he remembers the one from 1975 when Richard came off of turn 4 and got under Pearson and came on the radio and said, I got him. And Dale said, even then, we barely beat him to the line. 2 other gentlemen who had a little issue with the race were Eddie Wood of the famous Wood Brothers and Dave Marcus, but Eddie did politely point me to Greg Fielden's 40 Years of Stock Car History and talked about what a great book set it was. But Dave Marcus did speak longingly about the Michigan area and the sponsors that backed his car. When I showed him the final race rundown, Dave Marcus said, Well, you can tell we ran real good, but I don't recall much about it. He did say, though, that Chuck Walters of Transmissions Unlimited and the Truck Stop Restaurant Throttles were real good to him when he came to the area. Then he explained at the end of 1974 how Harry Hyde wanted him to drive the iconic K&K Insurance Dodge, and at Christmas time they asked him to drive it full-time. When I spoke to Dave for this matter, he said he was enjoying snowmobiling and ice fishing up at his resort in Wisconsin, and that if Dale Earnhardt had lived, he would have been a partner in it. Before I started working for his driver Brad Smith, I spoke to James Hilton about the race, and he also couldn't remember much of it, but when I showed him the rundown and that he qualified 11th, he said, well, you can tell we were running real good. But another driver who I did track down, Bob Whitlow, the only person to ever play an NFL game and run a NASCAR race, was more than forthcoming about his career and the Keselowskis who he drove for, even though he really didn't remember this race as well. However, according to some reports, H.B. Bailey was the first car to go out of MIS. That's not true. Bob Whitlow went out of the park in 1976 during a USAC stock car race. For more history on the iconic player, who has since passed away, we'll link to the feature we did on him a few months ago, and you can hear his whole life story. It's quite fascinating. This young lady doesn't recall the event either. One face that may be recognizable to fans of yesteryear was Miss Winston Bebop Hobble. She told me her first race was Pocono that year. She said they flew her in with the R.J. Reynolds guys. She had no idea what her outfit looked like until that day. And then she said, I was told, kiss this person, kiss that person, wave, greet the fans, whatever. I said, I remember you as someone who would take different types of pictures and wave and do different types of poses. She said, sure, let's do this and let's do that. She said, I can't believe they just wanted me to sit on tires or something. But she said she grew tired of it, and her last race was Atlanta in 1975. I hated dressing up, all the meetings, fighting for money. So she went into musical promotion with CO5, and she worked with artists like Bon Jovi, Cinderella, Def Leppard, Michael Jackson on the Bad Tour, NSYNC, New Edition, and others. She did explain that she appreciated the opportunity, made a lot of good friends, and keeps up with it on social media, but also admitted, I don't think I want to be in the modern NASCAR world. She said, it's too political now and doesn't look like it's a lot of fun. As for me, I've done just about every job you can think of in stock car racing. Photographer, publisher, writer, flag person, crew chief. I think I've done just about everything but own it and drive it. 50 years is a long time, and there's a lot to do over those many years. And next week, we'll look back on the 1974 Yankee 400, but with MRN clips and your host, the late Ken Squire. Hope you'll tune in. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.